Once, men and animals waited together for the salmon to return. One year the salmon did not come back up the river, and everyone died of hunger. A young Haïda wandering through the forest followed the flight of an eagle. The eagle led him to the river, where a rowboat full of men was waiting for him. The men took him to their village under the water. It was then he realized that these men were salmon. The salmon taught him that each Haïda village had a corresponding village under the water, and that each Indian had his double in the salmon world. When a man dies, he becomes a salmon, and when a salmon dies, he is reborn as a man. The boy also learned that man's duty was to respect the salmon. If not, they would never come up the river again. When he returned home, the young Indian recounted what he had learned, and the Haïda, the Salmon People, became the people of patience. Every summer since we began living on these windy and stormy islands, thousands of salmon have come to our shores. They are what we fish for. But for many years, fewer and fewer of them have crossed the Pacific Ocean and come up our rivers. It must be a warning. Perhaps man has forgotten how to respect the salmon. Perhaps we Haïda have forgotten what we owe to the past, to the land, and to the animals. I have not forgotten anything. That is why I came here to live in Yan, a village that has been deserted for more than a century. When I came here 15 years ago, I thought I heard voices in the wind. I thought that seal hunters had landed on the beach. I got up and looked. There was no one. As I listened to the voices, I realized that my ancestors were still present. I had been listening to a funeral chant. Just as my ancestors did, I go up the river to tell the salmon that we know how much we owe to them. The salmon must return to Haïda Gwaii. On the other side of the inlet, in the village of Old Masset, the past slowly comes to life. All of our past has remained here. To find it, we must listen and watch. Totems rise again on our beaches and in front of our long houses. They are the ladders by which we will rise to communicate with the world above. Thanks to them, the spirits of our ancestors come to visit us on earth, to guide us, protect us, and purify humanity. The totem symbolizes the alliance between the past and the present, between man and the animals. By carving the wood, the artist gives it a spirit, makes it come alive, and endows it with a special power. Haïda sculpture almost disappeared at the end of the last century because we, the Haïda, almost disappeared. But today, our cultural traditions are being rediscovered. The artist does not only imitate the past, since our art continues to grow. Nothing ever dies here, neither the men, nor the chants, nor the wood for our masks and totems. From Yan, we go south and up the Yaqun River to meet the first salmon. Thus, we make the journey our ancestors did a century ago in reverse. At that time, we lived all over the archipelago. Then the white man came, and our people were destroyed. The survivors abandoned the villages, and the rivers carried them to the north of the archipelago, where we must live today. The murmuring sound as the boat slides along the water, and as the oar cuts through it, is the voice of the father of my father, telling me the history of my people and the legends that began with them. There is not enough water. The boat will not go any further. Neither will my companions. I will go alone to meet the first salmon of the season. I will not really be alone, though. The earth will guide me. The eagle will show me the way. The ground we walk on contains the ashes of our forefathers. Every speck of dust on this earth is sacred to my people. We must pay tribute to the lush riverbanks, to the clearings, to the fragments of mist on the great cedar trees in the forest, to the other beings with whom we share this land, be they feathered, shelled, or covered with fur. A deer with a black tail. It's a young stag. Those must be his first or second set of antlers. They only have 2 branches. At the end of the summer, deer need a great deal of rich nourishment to help their new antlers to grow. It takes 4 months. Right now, their antlers are still alive. They are covered with a velvety, smooth skin that tears away when the old antlers die. While their new antlers are growing, the males stay away from the females. The young male lives alone in the swampy undergrowth at the edge of the forest. Today, deer have no predator to surprise them on Haïda, and so they have increased in number. They let us come near them. They know they have nothing to fear from us. We have always taken our food from the water. We are fishermen, not hunters. For the little ones born this year, man's odor is merely one more novelty to get acquainted with. Our history is rooted in the rainforest. Long ago, cedars and spruces were as high as 60 meters. Before felling them, we would always examine the heart of the tree to see if it was in good health and ready to be carved by man. The large cedars are our brothers. We respect the forest. Like the wood, it has carved out our lives. We owe everything we are to it. The cedars are our houses that shelter us, our pirogues that transport us, and our totems that link us to the world above. The forest has always been generous. We live on what we fish and what we gather. We do not cultivate the earth. centuries, as soon as June arrived, the Yaqun River was teeming with salmon. For the Haïda, their return is a blessing. We don't know how such a miracle can happen, but the salmon always return to where they were born, to spawn, attracted by the secret odor of the river from which they came. Thus they make the same journey twice, from river to sea and from sea to river. These fish help us to understand the world, that everything returns, just as the salmon do. Before arriving here, they have already traveled many thousands of kilometers. Pink, coho, and sockeye all rush to these murky waters against the current, swimming upstream to spawn in the cold water. Slowly their bodies change color and are covered with wounds. They exhaust themselves in this upstream journey, during which they often lose more than 1/3 of their weight. Battered, exhausted, the salmon must often stop on the way. Yet they continue, stubborn and determined. In July, there are usually tens of thousands of salmon. With strong thrusts of their jaws and their tails, they dig into the riverbed. They deposit their eggs in the bed, sheltered from the current. Thus the spawn is protected. Then it is fertilized by the males. At nightfall, the salmon finally stop. They wait. The long journey ends here. The salmon will not return to the sea, nor will they go back down the river. Their wounds are infected. Their flesh is slowly disintegrating. Nature has condemned them to die in order to feed their offspring. The survival of the species is thus assured. And now it's time for the eagles and the crows to fight over their remains. There have not been many salmon this year. This is very serious because here all beings are interrelated. The disappearance of some is a foreshadowing of the end for others. We must renew our alliance with the salmon, since if there are no more salmon, not only will we die of hunger, but how can we be reincarnated? The salmon must return in great numbers, as in the past. That is why I was chosen for the first fishing of the season. My name in Haïda is Keurthants, but I don't have the right to use it until the death of my uncle, when I will become chief of my clan, the Salmon clan. Before, we did not fish just anywhere. The fishing areas belonged to families which passed the privilege on from generation to generation. Families went upstream together. Villages were abandoned during the summer months, and we would set up camp at the water's edge. Nature was good to us because we knew and respected it. Today, forest exploitation is quickly turning our archipelago into a desert. When the white man chops down a centuries-old cedar tree, he is uprooting our memory as Haïda. Whatever happens to the earth happens to the sons of the earth. If man spits on the earth, he is spitting on himself. When all the trees have been cut down, where will the animals go? Where will the birds make their nests? What will become of the eagles? Everything will disappear. And this disappearance will mark the end of life and the beginning of survival. That is why we struggle to maintain a balance between us and other living things, animal or plant. By tradition, we clean the salmon as quickly as possible, handling it with great care. No part of this gift to man is lost. Everything must be consumed or returned to the river so that reincarnation can take place. It is important to respect these rules. If not, the salmon will not allow itself to be eaten, and it will fall from its cedarwood cross. Because the salmon has always kept us well fed, and because long winters give us a great deal of extra time, the Haïda have been artists for 10,000 years. We have always carved the argillite, a tender and brilliant black stone found to the south of the river. I learned by watching my father. That is how Haïda children grow up, by imitating their elders, by listening to their stories, by absorbing the wisdom of our people. Family legends are determined according to which half the mother belongs. I am salmon, half eagle. The eagle is a supernatural being who doesn't usually deal with human problems. A long time ago, however, a killer whale the size of a mountain settled near our coast, and nobody could get rid of him. He had emptied the ocean of salmon, and we had nothing left to eat. The Haïda asked for the eagle's help, and the eagle consented. In exchange, they promised to build totems in his honor. The eagle took the form of thunder and lightning and rid the coast of the killer whale. Ever since, the Haïda have kept their word, thanking the eagle by carving his image in the argillite or atop their masts.
Hagwiska.
No living thing is more important to us than you, salmon. We honor you and proclaim your great virtue. We shall all come together to celebrate your arrival among us. Respect requires us to cut your flesh, salmon, and return your bones to the river. Become the swimmer who returns again and again, the swimmer who is reborn again and again, the swimmer who reappears again and again. Haïda no longer belongs to us. Since the white man set foot on this land and renamed it the Queen Charlotte Islands. Ever since, we have been considered intruders, but we have not been conquered. Now we must prove to the world that this is our home. Tomorrow, I want my Haïda brothers who have taken refuge on the frozen soil of Alaska to return to the land of their ancestors. Tomorrow, Haïda will be a sovereign nation. On that day, we will all stand together, and then, and only then, will the salmon return.